So I'll give you here like an idea about three things. One of them is called the ESG reporting, which you can see in purple here, is the percentage of reporting across the world. And this is more updated, the most updated data I can get around ESG reporting, percentage of ESG assurance, and then the percentage of assurance provided by either audit firm or affiliated firms. Affiliated firms means that part of the audit firms who are having some qualifications to do environmental audit. So as you can see, some organization talking about the purple area, you can see that lots of countries like have already achieved 100% of disclosure in ESG reporting. Like, for example, you can see South Africa, you can see Hong Kong, you can see Australia, and followed that by India, the US, Spain, followed by some other countries like Canada and the United Kingdom, and so forth. So you can see here reporting was not the issue really. Lots of organizations across the world, more or less, having good proportion of reporting, with the exception of Saudi Arabia, was a bit low, and that's mainly was a feature of the Middle East at the time. But if you look at the rate of ESG assurance, and here this is a more developing or evolving area, you can see that some countries, and actually you can see France is the highest, which is 96%. And the reason for France specifically, because if you look at ESG, France was having this kind, it hosted what we call the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement was more focusing on not just about organization or the sustainability agenda, organization complying with sustainability, but they look at what we call the first time to talk about compliance and assurance. So that's why you can see France took the lead on this kind of area, followed by South Korea and some other countries. You can see the average around the world is around 50%. So you may see here that almost 50% of the reported disclosures have been assured. And then it comes to be very interesting when we look at the black box, which is the assurance provided, who provide the assurance. So you can see here, Saudi Arabia 100% and Australia 100% offered by audit firms like Argentina, Mexico, France, Spain, Germany, United Kingdom. But the United Kingdom is an interesting one because not all of them offered by audit firms. They offer by other institutions. And we had here in the UK something growing called ESG rating agencies. ESG rating agencies, which I'll speak about in a minute. We start to do some kind level of assurance here. So when you do the environmental audit, there are three areas you need to focus on, or assurance. One of them is the physical appraisal. And I know there is a talk, I think the last one is about using satellites. This is the physical appraisal. It's how physically detecting the level of environment pollution. That's the physical appraisal. The other one is systems appraisal, which is more about similar to what we do in statutory audit when you do internal control evaluation, is how have we got any systems for reporting and controlling this type of a disclosure or not. And finally, staff. And again, staff here is more about the social element of these kind of disclosures. So if you like to start to look at the audit here, you need to look at these three areas. So for anyone who'd like to do more research, you can have just one of these areas and specialize in, okay, what are the systems we do for ESG assurance? What are the staff appraisal we use for? And here we talk about staff appraisal, not just in terms of payments, but in terms of independency, how they are independent from other people who are doing the statutory or the internal control. So there are some interesting discussion here about independency, fees, appraisal, compensation, about staff who are doing these jobs. So the other thing as well for this audit is assess the future. When you cannot say I'm auditing part of sustainability and without talking about the sustainability of the firm or the company I'm evaluating. So we need to talk about planning, design, and preparedness for emergency, how you are prepared for any emergencies. Some organizations are high pollutant, especially oil and gas. If you have an emergency, how we can cope with that? So that's one very interesting thing, that some of the assurance, and we dealt with some organizations or audit firms who are doing some assurance, and they started to see what they done, what we call a risk matrix. And he said the first, okay, these companies and oil and gas is very high risk in terms of ESG. Why? Because you can have any explosions at any time, and that's going to be high pollutant, right? I mean, of course, the most high pollutant or high risk organization will be those with nuclear plants. Nuclear plants have the highest risk on ESG. But it's not about the risk, it's about how you mitigate the risk. And that's what they refer to being prepared for any emergency. So some auditors, or what we call them assurers, when they provide this kind of ESG assurance, they're not just looking at risk, they're looking at the mitigation of the risk. Because risk might be part of my business anyways, it's not a problem, but we need to ensure that you understand how to mitigate that. So the following question we need to ask here, and I'm going to ask questions and answer them very quickly here. The first question,